players we thought could impact here early, make an impact, be able to contribute. So it was much more about quality over quantity. It wasn't about signing as many guys as we could possibly sign. It was more about signing guys that we thought would really make an impact on this team. We've got a lot of great players that represent a lot of different places. Several guys recognized as the best player in their state. I think we have 11 different states represented. Guys from all over the footprint, which is always fun about Oregon, is we can go anywhere in the nation and find great players. Several multi-sport athletes. I think 14 guys that play multiple sports. That's always a big positive. And rankings can be overrated, but we signed some guys that are obviously really highly ranked and really really good players. But more than that, quality people. So we can open it up.
Right here on the right, Zach.
You guys entered with a top 5 class, able to add a couple commitments, maybe more down the road. More importantly, you didn't lose anyone. You didn't have any decommitments or flips. What does that say about this program, about you guys, the staff, and about the players coming in?
Yeah, I just think it's players come here for a reason, and there's a lot of reasons that go into that. But I think we have a really complete program. In a lot of ways, everything that you're looking for from development on the football field and the opportunity to compete at the highest level on the football field, as well as what Oregon provides academically and the support that exists here. On our staff, the relationships I think are a real key here. Every player that we were able to sign, it's truly a complete staff effort. I think that speaks to this is a place that's unique where it's going to be more than just a relationship with one position coach or one person on staff. This is a place where we team recruit and develop those relationships, and those have paid off.
On the left, Eric.
Should the on-field success the 25 class has had help just maybe reaffirm the ability to play early, to have contributions early for these guys when you were kind of down the stretch of the cycle?
Yeah, I think it's just proven, what we've always said, if you're good enough, you're old enough. And I think this year was a great indication of that. If you've got the ability to make an impact here early, you can. That's really about you and how you progress as you get here. And then again, everybody's process is going to be a little bit different. But I think, certainly some people say that, some people show that. And I think we were a team that could show that this year.
We're behind him, Matt.
Your time here, a lot of your class has been committed well before today. Today you added 3 guys, in Hudson, Azell, and Trey. I think you offered all 3 of them maybe in the last couple of weeks. What was it that you saw? And are diamonds in the rough still a thing in today's day and age of recruiting? And just what did you like about those guys?
Yeah, they're all guys that we identified earlier. There's guys that we rather pull the trigger on later, knowing that we wanted to make sure we had a great opportunity. It's not like you want to alert the rest of the world what your intentions are necessarily with some guys you're looking at. And then it's always the constant evaluation of, okay, what's our roster going to look like in the future here as well? Where do we need to grow? What attrition might exist? There's always attrition every year. So I think you pay attention to all those details and making sure you don't oversign to where you don't have enough opportunities for the people that you're bringing onto the team.
In the middle, Tyson.
Just what were the added challenges this year when it's no secret that both your coordinators want to be head coaches and Will's official and whatever about Tosh, but what sort of how did that change the conversation with guys this year as they're kind of
the conversation has never changed here. I mean, every player that signed here, they always sit down in my office, and I always share the truth about my vision for their future and the truth of what does it look like for me here in the future and the future of our coaches here. I've never been shy about the fact. In fact, been very adamant about the fact that my goal is to help people reach their dreams and goals. Will obviously grew up, spending time in that stadium. His parents both went to school there. So I think when you're honest from the beginning to the end of, hey, this is what it looks like right now. We've got an unbelievable staff. We've had transition here in the past, and we've shown exactly what that looks like when transition happens. But when you're really honest about that and you don't tell them, hey, this guy's here for life, and then the next thing you know, the rug gets ripped out from underneath you and you prepare them for those moments, I think that speaks volumes. And, ultimately people are signing up for more than just one person being here, but that's part of the goal is for people to come and get the opportunity to share in their dreams and their futures. And part of that is coaches get to celebrate their futures as well. So when you're honest about it, I don't think that has to be a big conversation. I think when people are deceptive about it, when it looks different in other places, I think that's when it's a big shock, and a lot of things can change.
James.
Second year in a row, Dan, where some of the most prominent members of the class are from pretty big distances from here. So how is it? Who do you credit most to where you do recruit nationally? Yes, but to be able to go into Texas, Maryland, Alabama, Florida, and get the scale and prominent players that you were in those states?
Yeah, again, I think it's about finding the right players that are willing to say, okay, I'm looking for the best, not the most convenient. It starts there, and then you have to have a staff that's relentless and willing to, take the long hours. I remember spending time, myself and several other coaches on our staff during bye week, and everybody else on a Saturday might be sitting somewhere in back home watching game day, and we're on the road recruiting. And that's not necessarily the thing that you want to do on your bye week, but when you have an opportunity to go get great players, it's exactly what you need to do. So there's a relentless approach by everybody on this staff, and then it's about finding players that aren't afraid to travel to go chase their dreams. We've been able to find the right combination of that.
Back middle, Jack.
Coach, you obviously talked about the quantity of the player, and you've always preached the mindset, looking for the right guys that can play winning football. In the ever-changing landscape of college football with NIL, when it comes to recruiting, how do you make sure that the guys that you're getting have the right mindset going in, or is that something that you instill in them when they get here?
Well, I think mindset training is something that's going to happen, all throughout your career. And you hope you're going to a place where they take a lot of pride in that and spend the time. This is certainly a place where we do that. But nobody's a finished product when they get to college. You're still developing. You're still growing as a person. But you want to find people that are about growth mindset. You can identify as somebody that's going to have the strong characteristics to be able to handle tough when it gets tough. You're never going to be 100% when you're evaluating those things. But what you can do, again, is be open and honest and communicate what that looks like. And I think we've done a really good job of that here in the past and certainly developed some great guys on our roster currently.
Right next one, Brett.
Coach, you talked about how with this group you wanted to see that they could make an impact on the field immediately this coming season. I was just wondering, how did watching this freshman class kind of impact the strategy going into this year, looking for kind of the same motto, and how has your strategy throughout the years of National Signing Day kind of changed over the years and kind of led to this decision to go with this type of
No, I think you're always looking for the best players. I think what's changed is Oregon's a really good program, so we can go get the best players. And then we've had proven results. But you're always looking for guys that can go make an impact. But that by no means means 100% of the players that come here are going to go make an immediate impact. I think it's really hard to do, especially when you're talking about a good program. But when you go sign players and you develop players and you grow them into be really talented guys that are really important parts of your team, the goal next year is to go find players that are better than them and make the competition on the team even better and even stronger. And that's something we've been able to elevate, every single year here, is find guys that can make an impact and guys that can get better. They're going to push your roster to grow and improve. When you do that, you can have a lot of success.
Zach on the right.
You guys identified Bryson Beaver relatively late in the process, offered him and brought him into the fold this summer. What was it initially that you guys liked about him, and how do you think he's going to fit here?
Yeah, quarterback's always a unique position. Getting to see him, throw in person, I think is always a big piece of that. Trusting your evaluation skills, and this is a guy that obviously got really hot towards the end and had a lot of opportunities and places that he could go. But you fall in love with the family. Bryson's got an unbelievable group around him. And then you really get to recognize, okay, the arm talent, the things that exist there, they're going to be beneficial and a piece that you want in your program. And then the ability to mentally handle the load that we ask for our quarterbacks to handle. There's a lot that goes to that, and he's a guy that checked those boxes.
Stay on the right.
Yeah, you had to flip over your entire secondary last year, and then when you're recruiting this year, just what was that process like to tell people hey, there are opportunities here, and then what do you like about the class you brought in?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, ball production is really important in the secondary. I think you have to find guys that can attack the ball. A lot of these guys that we signed this year have a lot of position for flexibility and versatility. I think that's really big, making an impact in special teams play. We continue to look for length, but we also look for dynamic players, right? And all those things really showed up in the guys that we signed this year.
On the left, Matt.
Just touched on it briefly, position versatility. Tredarian Ball is a guy that you've seen him here at Saturday Night Live before, but you watch his high school tape in multiple 100-yard receiving games. How much of a target is that to find that type of player at running back that can shift out to the slot? Because you got a couple guys here now that do that, and is that something that you're trying to add more and more of?
You're always trying to add great players, and then I think the best coaches adapt your system to fit great players. We played more 21 personnel this year than I've ever played, in my time here, and that's credit to us having really talented players here that can do that. And T-ball, Tredarian's definitely a guy that fits that. You can flex him out and throw him the ball. He can run it from the backfield. He has versatility, and that makes him harder to defend.
Eric on the left.
Once again, a really nice offensive line haul. Big, athletic guys. How unusual do you find it that you got two guys in Emmanuel and Tommy that are 6'6", 340, but can do what they do? And are they guards or are they tackles? Do you guys have a sense of that yet?
Yeah, these guys are super athletic. They're guys that we've been recruiting for a really, really long time. You know, we think they both can play tackle, but they do certainly have position versatility. But see them there at the tackle position. They're both guys that you talk about recruiting for a long time. I mean, remember seeing Tommy in a camp, 3 years ago, and same thing really with Manny in that situation. We spent a lot of time traveling to camps, seeing guys in action. Those relationships start then, and then it becomes the body of work of building that relationship and seeing what it grows into, and making sure you're still through that entire process. These are guys that can play for you at a high level, and we feel really confident in guys like that.
In the middle, Tyson.
What sort of communication were you guys able to have with Gatlin Bear over the last 2 years, and then just what's kind of like the onboarding process for a guy that's been away?
Yeah, it's been somewhat limited, but there's been some opportunities in there that we could, and there's still been great communication with Brad and Shay and his family, the ability to connect from time to time. But Elder Bear's been doing a mission, and he's done an unbelievable job of that. But we've been able to stay in touch, whether it through email, the occasional opportunity to touch base with the people he's around, and really excited to get him here. This is one that you signed several years ago, and now you get the opportunity to have him here. I'm really excited about what Gatlin can do.
James.
With this being the 5th recruiting class for y'all, and now on paper setting up for next year, the rooms, each position room is stacked, I would say, deeper and accordingly by class, better than at any point so far. When you go about into years 4 and 5 and 6 and you're planning that way, like how much is this now like you're hitting that point to where you can stack the rooms to where exactly you want every one of them to be?
Yeah, I think time will tell. I mean, I'm really excited about the group of guys that we just signed, certainly. But college football is fluid, right? It'll continue to change. There'll continue to be attrition. We've been really lucky to keep guys here and show guys the plan for them. Whenever in a changing world, as things progress, it's harder and harder to do that. But I think that it really goes into each class as individual in itself, and you have to attack it accordingly and make sure that you continue to work your tail off, because it just doesn't happen on accident.
Zach on the right.
Tony Cumberland's someone that feels like he almost flies under the radar in this stacked class. He's been committed for a long time, transferred out to Willamette. How has it been like building a relationship with him, and how encouraging is it to see someone committed for so long when there's a lot of recruits that do change their minds often in this game?
Yeah, I mean, as we all know, like this group looks different right now compared to today than it did, come June. And I think Tony's a great example of a guy that knew what he wanted. It's been really fun watching Tony grow up and become the man that we're all excited to see. But obviously, he's an unbelievable player and an unbelievable talent that's done big things here locally. And I'm excited to see that show up on our field. But we're really grateful for guys like Tony.
On the left, Matt.
Tristan had 6 sacks in a CIF championship game. That's pretty ridiculous, regardless of the level of football. What do you like about him at linebacker, and just like his commitment to this program and impact he could have?
Yeah, Tristan's a guy that reminds me a little bit of a guy you guys are all familiar with, and Bryce Betcher, is just as far as how much he loves the game of football, how intense he plays, the level of intensity that he enjoys training. He works extremely hard, so he has all those traits that you're hoping that you see, in a linebacker. And obviously he's had a great season. I'm glad that he's going to get to be a part of what we're doing here.
In the middle, Tyson.
Would a coordinator who doesn't have aspirations to be a head coach jive with your personality?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I guess. I don't know.
Same row.
I've never really thought about it that deep.
Eric.
Follow up with Zach's question about Tony and just having somebody here locally, that commitment to move from Arizona up here. What does that say about him? But also, what does that allow him to do in terms of getting ready, being in the community, maybe spending a little more time here, being kind of local? How does that benefit him?
I think there's benefits from just a familiarity standpoint. I think ultimately that's a decision Tony made for an opportunity to get somewhere where he felt like it was going to put him in position to be where he wanted to be. 3 years from there, 2 years from there. And the great part about that is, there's a piece of where he can come over here and visit campus quite a bit, over the last year, which was awesome for us. And, Coach Line did an unbelievable job, there at Willamette with Tony, and he's done it with several players. And obviously him being an alum here at Oregon, is certainly a benefit as well.
James.
It's exceptionally rare for anybody to go into Mobile and be able to pull a player out of there who isn't from the state or the Gulf region. What went into the recruitment of Tank Jones and just what do you see from him and what he brings here?
Yeah, it's one of the games. Again, I don't get to see a ton of games during the season. It's one of the games that I was able to go watch him play this year, which was a lot of fun to see the impact he can have on a game. He's been a guy that's been used on defense, used in the backfield, carrying the ball. Cameragi, Coach Lapoy, those guys built unbelievable relationships, as well as several other people on our staff. And I think this was like a great example of a place being a dream school for a player that really came to fruition for Tank and what he's going to be able to accomplish here. But just again, an unbelievable player that said, "Hey, I don't care that it's not close, right? Like if this is the place that fits me, that's where I want to be."
Zach on the right.
You've hired and worked with 3 coordinators in your time at Oregon. Are there certain things that you initially didn't think were really important as far as traits go with Tosh or Kenny or Will that now that you've worked with them, you're like, oh, that's something that I need in a coordinator going forward?
I think what I would say is you realize what traits are maybe more important than others. And I've been really blessed to have unbelievable coaches here, but like the most important traits aren't always the most important traits that other people think. To me, it's about the ability to be humble, the ability to work with others, right, and share a creative space to realize it's not just yours, it's others, right? A lot of people are involved in having success on offense and defense. We've been really fortunate to have coaches that realize that, to recognize that it's not their call, that it's the player, right? That's really the secret, is having great players and having guys that can execute at a high level, that accountability is necessary, and then being humble enough to, again, realize when you make mistakes so you don't make the same mistake again. I think a lot of those things don't necessarily exist in the game, and all those traits are way more important to me than how much football you know, what you can draw up on a dry erase board. Like none of that matters if you can't teach a player to do it and they don't know that they love you and you care about them. Like all those things are way more important to me than a lot of the things that I think people evaluate when they're going through that process.
Back middle, Jack.
In your opening statement, you also addressed retention of players. In today's day and age, with how quickly and how easily people jump into the portal, how important is it to keep that player retention, and sort of what impact does player retention have on recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, I think they're all tied together. It's all hand in hand, and really, what it has a lasting impact on is your team, right? There's several guys on our team that made a huge impact this year that didn't have as big a role as last year. And strength in numbers, like this is of all the years that we've talked about that really applying. Like this year is a great indication of we're going into a couple games this year. We have multiple starters out because of injuries here or there. That retention is part of what pays off in those moments, and guys creating moments for themselves because of how hard they worked. And you never know. Life's hard, right? Football's hard. It's a hard sport. Some people give up right before they reach an opportunity and what they can create. And we've had a lot of guys that have battled through, didn't necessarily have the easiest path of the field, and figured it out because they were able to stick around and say, I'm just going to work hard and see what comes out of it. And we've had a lot of guys benefit from that. This team certainly benefited from that.
On the left, Matt.
Certainly hard to do something unique and something that no one else really does. You've recorded messages to your guys that signed with videos and talking about their signing here and their impact it's going to have on them and on you. Where did that start? Where did the genesis of that happen? And what's the process of putting that together, and what are you trying to accomplish with it?
Yeah. It's been something I've probably done for a little while. I don't know. I don't love that every secret gets out, but we build relationships, and not everybody always picks up the phone. Not everybody always answers the text message, but a lot of times when a video gets sent, it gets seen. There's a lot of different ways you can communicate nowadays with guys and players, and we want to do everything we can to make sure that when they wake up in the morning, they see a message from us, and when they go to bed at night, they see that. So communication is a big key to that.
James.
It's more or less been reported, Dan, but wanted to confirm that Will and Tosh will be staying on and calling plays throughout the playoff.
Yeah, certainly the plan is for those guys to be able to help us as we go through and chase what we want to finish this season.
Second row, Eric.
That was, I think, the last player to get across the finish line before this. I'm just curious on your thoughts on him and that 6'5", 205. The athletic traits are kind of unusual. What can he offer? How many positions can he play? What can he be here?
Yeah, I think the options are limitless when you see a player of Jet's ability. He's got great ball instincts. He can attack. He's a physical hitter. You look at a lot of things that we were able to do with Dylan this year. Dylan Thieneman in his stack position. I think Jet translates to a lot of that stuff really well as well. But ultimately, just a really great program there at Bishop Gorman that's turned out a lot of phenomenal players, a lot of success. The guy knows what it means to be a winner, right? And you want guys in your program that knows what it means to be a winner. He comes from a family of athletes, so just excited to see what he's able to do here.
Last two, Zach on the right.
long before you got here, there was a sense that, or a notion that you couldn't recruit to Oregon, that it was too hard to get kids up in the Pacific Northwest. You've obviously proved that not to be the case. Do you take a sense of pride in that and just showing that, hey, it's, you can do this if you put the work in and you hire the right staff around you?
Yeah, I just take a sense of pride in the product that we have here, and again, that's credit to our players and credit to the coaching staff that I get to work with every day. This is an unbelievable place, and it's awesome that other people get to recognize what exists here and what's continuing to grow here.
Last question, James.
I think it's a foregone conclusion that you'll be rooting for Kirby in your former program, but will you be also rooting for Texas Tech this weekend?
No, probably not. I mean, no. I'm going to enjoy some good football games this weekend. I'm not rooting against them. Cutter Left, which is on our staff, his brother's over there. Sure, I hope they have success. Yeah, I'm just going to root for some good games. Probably like all you guys on Saturday. You want to watch good games.
Thanks, Coach.
Appreciate it.
Thanks, Coach.
Todd, you got it.
Got who? Yes. Well, we needed somebody. That's what you're. I'm like Schwarber. Right. Schwarber. Tyson.
Oh no, I was just
I have no idea
I
what
was
you're
just trying to
do.
get preloaded for I didn't know how much time we had left, so
Oh,
I was
yeah.
trying to get
I get it.
back into the queue.
I got it. You start flashing. I got no idea what you're doing.
I'm telling you to take a pitch, Todd.
That was actually an amazing back and forth between you guys. That was way more enjoyable.
Zipper.
2 words, like the first word.
Sports business.